Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Mess. So today we're going to continue the series Model Museum, where I review every single Sega Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3 game in a retrospective fashion. That is not an arcade racing game, because I did that retrospective last year. And today we're taking a look at Zero Gunner, one of the few shmups on the Sega Model 2, and interestingly another shmup developed by Psiyko, because you've either already seen or will see soon Pilot Kids, one of the latest games developed for the Sega Model 2. But right off the start, if you love shmups, you're going to love Zero Gunner, even though it does things that are unique to the genre. You will see right now there is a lock-on mechanic which allows you to just move wherever you want on the screen and hit the enemy you've locked onto. That is innovative and unique, but what it does is force your helicopter to swing left and right and basically open yourself up to being easier to be hit. It is a risk versus reward mechanic, and it's what Zero Gunner hangs its hat on and does really well. But right off the top, it's also a very interesting Model 2 game because so many of the Sega developed games are so bright and colorful and cheery. Zero Gunner does the exact opposite. This does not look like a Sega game whatsoever. You can tell it does not have that bright blue Sega sky or any of the other vibes that you expect to see on Model 2, which I think is a really good thing because it's fun to get some diversity in the look. But Psiyko made awesome shmups, and Zero Gunner got a sequel on Dreamcast, which is just as good, but it all got its start on the Sega Model 2, and it's so much fun to see here. And you can see as we move through the game, it has a militaristic shooter vibe to it, but the lock-on mechanic makes such a huge difference. You can move on the screen wherever you want so long as you're locked on, but you will see at the left-hand side of the screen there is a lock-on timer. Technically, you can lock on too long and you will run out of that ability. In execution, you're moving around so much and dealing with other enemies, I rarely if ever actually get to that point. But this game has 3 different campaigns, all of which are different and unique and have different vibes. We went from the USA in the beginning, now we're to the Europe campaign, and we're in a completely different environment. Some of the enemies are going to be used in different places, but for the most part, each campaign is unique and different enough to really feel like it's its own unique thing. You will see from time to time some red helicopters come up, shoot those for more power-ups. And the more power-ups you get, the easier the game becomes, but just like any other shmup, once you take a death like right there, you go back to the base power, and that is not a good time. It's not wholly unfair to the point where if you lose your power-ups, you think you should probably just stop and start from the beginning again, but it is definitely to your detriment. But what I've loved so much about this game are just the visuals and unique enemy designs. You basically have this ship that comes out of the sand like a sand submarine and now acts as basically like a giant land tank. It is so creative, it's so innovative, and obviously this is nothing that exists in real life, but it 100% works in the context of the Zero Gunner universe. All of the explosions, all of the different enemies just go together to make an absolutely A+ shmup in my opinion. But interestingly, this game is not as loved as a lot of other shmups from the era, but tell me down below, did you play this game back in the day? Have you played it in arcades, or is this the first time you're ever seeing it? Because I'm expecting some people are going to say they've never actually checked this one out before. But as we move into Asia here, you do get nighttime flair as well. There's daytime elements, sunset, nighttime, and we go through this corridor here with all of these neon signs. Every single level feels different and unique, while also having the same mechanics and same vibe going on as well. It does a great job of balancing, showing something new every single time you play a new level, while also focusing on the actual combat, because in any shmup, spending too much time looking at the background is a recipe for getting yourself killed, but here there's just enough to see without being distracting. We know this is the Great Wall of China, and everything is basically in black and white underneath you, while all of your enemies are in color in this area. It's a good visual indicator of what you need to look at, while also not distracting you so much that you're going to take an inadvertent death. This is a very hard but very fair game. If your ship gets destroyed, it's because you made a mistake and not because the game forced you into it. It's 100% skill, and that's all you really want out of a shmup. And it's so much fun to go into the screen, go up towards the top, but be able to still shoot from the side. You'll see there I took a continue, and that's 100% because I was making mistakes. And I love as we move back to the USA as well, we go through downtown Chicago. There's not a highway this big, there's not that many lanes, and trust me, there'd be a lot of traffic. But the game's got a really interesting futuristic soundtrack as well, so go ahead and listen for like 45 seconds, and I'll come back and tell you more about the history of the game and why you should play it. It's your classic military shooter soundtrack, but it works in context here. As we go through Europe again, I love this little village and how the camera moves up and down, left and right in real time, because this is 100% in 3D engine space. This is not like a 2D shmup where you can't go in and out of the screen without sprite scaling. This gives you full 3D range of motion, and it gives you full 3D ability to take a bullet straight to the cockpit of your helicopter. Like I said earlier, this is not an easy game, and as you get into further missions, the bullets start coming fast and furious. I play all of these on the normal difficulty, but if you want an extra challenge, you can go into the test menu and turn them up to hard mode, and then you're basically going to be taking deaths all the time until you learn the game. But I just love what Zero Gunner does. It has such a small innovation, the lock-on mechanic, that changes the entire way the game is played. This is wholly unique in the shmup space. I don't know of many other games that have this. And when you're fighting a boss and you're able to strafe in a 360-degree circle around him before you defeat him, it just 100% works, and it's such a unique vibe going on. I could understand where some people might not love this, but if you play a ton of shmups, getting something new and unique is a breath of fresh air, and it kind of gives you more longevity in the genre, because this is not the type of genre where I'm going to play 10 games in a row. It's not like a racing game where it's just something that I've never seen before and I want to play it. I play like 1 or 2 shmups for a couple weeks, and then I take like a month or 2 break from the genre until I come back and decide that I really want to learn another game. But tell me down below if that's how you play, or if you're basically nothing but a shmup player, because I feel like this genre, at least on the channel, is not anyone's most favorite genre, and I always see low reviews because of it being a shmup. Just one of those things. It is a niche genre. Fans that love it. People that don't touch it never touch it whatsoever. But again, as we move around and we go through Asia here, seeing all those buildings, the pagodas down there, every level has its own unique visual flair, and I love when the game gets closer to the ground and gives us some more of those ground-based attacks. But as soon as that happens, we end up flying over a bridge and the game moves around quicker again. It's constantly changing its speed, it's constantly swinging the camera, and it's constantly giving you a little bit of a breath of fresh air and breathing room before another boss comes out. But again, like any shmup, you want it action-packed from start to finish, and you're getting that here. And I love as the helicopter that we're fighting moves in and out of the screen, and we can 100% just go around him as he gets bigger and smaller. But I'm going to give you one more taste of the soundtrack, because this is one of my favorite non-Sega soundtracks on the Model 2, and I'll come back and show you a little bit more of the game, talk about Zero Gunner 2, the sequel, and why this is a really unique game, both on the Model 2 and in the shmup genre. But enjoy, because the soundtrack here is straight fire. It's just fast-paced and dramatic, and I do think that a good soundtrack hooks you into the game more and makes you a little bit better of a player. As the soundtrack swells and the action gets more intense, you really do focus down on what is going on. But every single campaign, the further you get into it, the harder it's going to get. To be able to 1cc this entire game, all campaigns, would take a ton of practice, but I know for people out there that love doing it, it's going to give them a lot of great feedback. And I'm just showing you the last bit of this game in one continuous take so you understand how it functions. I love this giant, what looks like an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean that has all of these different gun turrets on it. The boss fights, especially in later stages, are just multi-tiered and multi-stage. You have to shoot a few things and destroy them before the camera will swing around and show you more of the boss fight, and I think that really does work. I love how these little scrub enemies come in and attack you while this rig just starts extending up out of the air. Almost feels like a transformer in nature. This game just has everything I crave as far as a shmup is concerned, and also when you're playing a ton of Model 2 games, it's fun to see a game not developed by Sega, because on the Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3, the predominant developer was always Sega, but they did let other companies use their hardware, not companies that had their own 3D hardware. You're not going to see anything from Namco on these boards, but somebody like Psiyko 100% was able to use Sega's hardware to release these really fun experiences, and honestly, Sega was not a shmup maker. You're not going to to be playing something like this that Sega developed, you had to get it from other companies. But this is just a 10 out of 10 in my book. It's unique, it's different, and the lock-on mechanic swinging your helicopter around just feels so new and unique. The first time I played it, I fell in love. But that is Zero Gunner. I definitely recommend you play it if you never have, and definitely check out Pilot Kids, the other shmup made by Psiyko on the Sega Model 2. But I'll have more Model Museum next week. I'll have videos throughout the week, but we have saved the world. We're done, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.